The Galactic Council chamber was a swirling amalgamation of alien architecture. Floating platforms defied gravity, while holographic banners projected intricate patterns unique to each species. The constant hum of untranslated languages reverberated through the hall, adding to the alien cacophony. Representatives from hundreds of star systems had convened, their forms ranging from crystalline giants that refracted light in dazzling patterns to gelatinous blobs that pulsed with color in rhythm to their words. Today, however, the grand hall was filled with an unusual energy, a mix of anticipation, skepticism, and barely suppressed amusement. In the center of the chamber, under the cold glare of the council's spotlight, stood Captain Nathaniel Reyes, a representative of humanity. His tailored navy blue uniform bore the insignia of the United Terran Fleet, his posture was straight as a laser beam, and his face carried a calm determination that belied the chaos brewing around him. The source of that chaos stood awkwardly to his left, Princess Zylara of the Royal House of Cralyx, her luminescent, lavender skin shimmering under the chamber's artificial lighting. Her 4 eyes darted nervously across the room as she wrung her delicate hands, the long, flowing dress she wore seeming more a prison than a garment of dignity. "Captain Reyes," boomed the voice of the council speaker, a towering insectoid with mandibles that clicked with each word, "are you aware of the terms you have just accepted?" Nathaniel cleared his throat, his voice steady despite the crowd's snickers. The agreement was clear. As the representative of Earth, I inherit all debts, assets, and associated obligations of the Cralyxian royal family as a gesture of goodwill and alliance. The speaker's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smirk. "Indeed. And do you understand that said obligations include the royal offspring?" At this, a ripple of laughter spread across the chamber. Representatives from other species exchanged knowing glances, their amusement thinly veiled. Nathaniel glanced at Princess Zylara, who seemed on the verge of melting into the floor, and then back at the speaker. "I am fully aware," he replied, his tone resolute. "Earth honors its commitments." The laughter grew louder. One particularly rotund alien, resembling a sentient boulder with tiny, dangling limbs, shouted, "Good luck with that humor." This was followed by a chorus of laughter that echoed through the chamber. Nathaniel didn't flinch. His military career had tempered him through asteroid storms, tense standoffs with warlords, and the chaos of interstellar diplomacy, leaving him unshaken in moments like this. But as he escorted the visibly mortified Zylara out of the chamber, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation sinking in. The corridors of the council station were quieter, their towering walls adorned with intricate alien carvings and the guards' unblinking stares adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Alien guards in ornate armor stood at attention as Nathaniel and Zylara passed, their eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, tracking the pair with a mix of pity and curiosity. Zylara walked a few steps behind Nathaniel, her elegant gait betrayed by the nervous twitching of her hands. "Why did you do it?" she finally asked, her voice soft but sharp, like the edge of a finely honed blade. Nathaniel paused and turned to face her. "Do what?" "Accept me," she clarified, her 4 eyes narrowing. "You must know I'm not desirable. Not to my people, and certainly not to yours." Nathaniel's expression softened. "Desirability isn't the issue," he said, his voice calm but firm, though he silently pondered the weight of her words. "The alliance matters. Earth needs allies, and this gesture strengthens our position. Besides, every life has value." Zylara snorted, a surprisingly human sound. "A noble sentiment, but naive. My own father called me a burden unfit for royal duty. Do you think the council laughed at you because of the alliance?" "No. They laughed because they know what I am." "And what is that?" Nathaniel asked, genuinely curious. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the polished floor. "An exile." Nathaniel sighed. "Well, Princess, welcome to the club. Humans aren't exactly the galaxy's favorite species either." For the first time, a flicker of amusement crossed her face. "That much is evident." The human delegation's quarters aboard the station were modest compared to the lavish accommodations of more established species. Nathaniel led Zylara into a small but functional room, its minimalist design reflecting Earth's practical approach to interstellar relations. A single cot, a desk with a built-in holodisplay, and a window offering a view of the station's sprawling exterior comprised the entirety of the space. "This is where you'll stay for now," Nathaniel said, gesturing to the cot. "It's not much, but it's private." Zylara looked around, her expression unreadable. "It's inadequate." "High praise," Nathaniel muttered under his breath. Louder, he added, "If you need anything, let me know. I'll be next door." As he turned to leave, she called out, "Why do you act as though this alliance is worth so much?" He paused in the doorway. "Because it is. Earth is still rebuilding after decades of war and environmental collapse. We're newcomers on the galactic stage, and alliances like this one give us a fighting chance." Zylara studied him, her gaze piercing. "And if I become more trouble than I'm worth?" Nathaniel smiled faintly. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." The next few days were dominated by bureaucratic meetings where tense negotiations unfolded, logistical disputes dragged on, and veiled mockery from other delegations tested Nathaniel's patience. Nathaniel, ever the consummate professional, navigated each challenge with a calm demeanor, even as whispers of his royal burden followed him like a shadow. Zylara, meanwhile, kept to herself, rarely venturing out of her quarters except for required appearances. It wasn't until a particularly tense meeting with the trade delegation from the Vraxilian Empire that things took an unexpected turn. The Vraxilians, a reptilian species known for their ruthless bargaining tactics, had been pressing Nathaniel on Earth's lack of valuable trade goods. "Your planet offers little of worth," hissed Ambassador Slavak, his forked tongue flicking with every word. "Why should we waste our resources on such a primitive alliance?" Before Nathaniel could respond, Zylara's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Primitive? Coming from a species that still uses combustion engines on its freighters?" The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Zylara stepped forward, her posture regal despite the faint tremor in her hands. "Humans may be new to the stars, but they are far from primitive. Their ingenuity and adaptability are unmatched." Slavak sneered. "And what would a discarded princess know of such things?" Zylara's eyes flashed with anger, but her voice remained steady. "Enough to know that underestimating them would be your first mistake. And likely your last." The tension in the room thickened, a near-tangible force, until Slavak finally backed down, his forked tongue flicking in irritation while others exchanged furtive glances. Nathaniel, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel a flicker of pride. That evening, Nathaniel found Zylara in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. She didn't turn as he approached, but her voice carried a note of exhaustion. "I suppose I should thank you," she said. "For what?" Nathaniel asked, leaning against the railing beside her. "For not intervening earlier. You let me handle it." He shrugged. "You didn't need my help." She glanced at him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Perhaps not. But it's more than my father ever gave me." Nathaniel nodded, letting the silence stretch between them. The stars outside the window shimmered like distant signals, their cold light a stark reminder of the uncharted vastness and challenges that lay ahead. "You're stronger than you think," he said finally. Zylara's smile widened, just a fraction. "And you're not as foolish as you look." They both laughed, the sound breaking the weight of the moment. For the first time, it felt like an alliance worth fighting for. The days that followed Nathaniel's initial acceptance of Princess Zylara as part of Earth's alliance were anything but peaceful. News of the arrangement spread like wildfire across the station, culminating in heated debates and even a scuffle between two rival delegations, their sneers and speculative glances laying bare the political tension. The whispered insults and knowing glances were bad enough, but the challenges only grew as the practical implications of the alliance began to surface. Nathaniel found himself summoned to yet another emergency meeting of the United Terran Fleet's diplomatic corps, where a half-dozen human officials argued around a conference table. The air bristled with tension. The room's plain steel walls, broken only by the glow of Earth's holographic emblem, starkly contrasted the Galactic Council's grandeur, a silent reminder of humanity's fledgling status. "You can't possibly think this is sustainable, Nathaniel," said Director Marissa Tran, her tone clipped and her arms crossed tightly. "Housing her, feeding her, dealing with the political fallout? It's not just a drain on resources, It's a public relations disaster. Public relations? Nathaniel repeated, his gaze hardening. Internally, he weighed the risks of public perception against the long-term value of the alliance. We just secured an alliance with one of the most resource-rich sectors in the galaxy. Do you think anyone will care about a few bruised egos? They care now, Marissa shot back. Every day, we're getting reports of other delegations mocking us. Some are even questioning our fitness to remain part of the council. Let them question, Nathaniel said firmly. Earth has faced worse. Before Marissa could respond, a junior officer interrupted with a sharp knock on the door. Captain Reyes, Director Tran. We've just received a formal challenge from the Vraxilian Empire. The room fell silent. Marissa's eyes widened. A challenge? Yes, the officer replied. They've invoked the right of provenance, claiming our alliance with the Cralyxian royal family is illegitimate. They demand a trial by combat to resolve the matter. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. He remembered a notorious account of the right of provenance where a delegation's defeat led to their expulsion from the council, a warning of the stakes they now faced. The stakes were high. If Earth lost, not only would the alliance with Cralyx collapse, but humanity's reputation would suffer irreparable damage. What's the timeline? He asked. 48 hours, the officer said. The Vraxilian champion will arrive tomorrow. Nathaniel nodded. Prepare the training simulations. I'll handle this personally. Princess Zylara's quarters were dimly lit when Nathaniel arrived, her figure silhouetted against the window as she stared out into the endless void of space. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, her expression unreadable. I heard about the challenge, she said softly. Nathaniel crossed his arms. I'm handling it. You don't need to worry. Her four eyes narrowed. Don't patronize me, Captain. This challenge is as much about me as it is about your alliance. I know the Vraxilian traditions. They'll target the weakest link, and right now, that's me. You're not the weakest link, Nathaniel said, his voice firm. And I won't let them use you as a scapegoat. She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. You don't have to fight this battle alone. I can help. Nathaniel hesitated. Zylara's resolve was evident, but he couldn't ignore the risks. Ostracized by her own people and branded unfit for royal duties, Zylara had endured scorn and isolation. Yet now, her gaze burned with a resolve forged from years of quiet defiance. What can you offer? He asked finally. She smiled faintly. More than you think. The Vraxilian champion arrived with much fanfare, their entourage flooding the council station with the sharp scent of sulfur and the clinking of ceremonial armor. The champion, a towering figure nearly 8 feet tall, moved with a lethal grace, its obsidian scales shimmering like armor, and its predatory gaze dissecting the arena with calculated precision. Its clawed hands flexed menacingly as it surveyed the gathered crowd. Nathaniel and Zylara stood side by side in the observation deck, watching as the champion made its entrance. Impressive, Nathaniel muttered. And deadly, Zylara added. The Vraxilians rarely lose these challenges. Their champions are bred and trained for this purpose. Good thing I'm not Vraxilian, Nathaniel replied, a hint of a smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. Zylara tilted her head, studying him. You're confident. I hope you're right. The day of the challenge arrived, and the council arena was packed with spectators. The space had been transformed into a multi-terrain battleground, with sections of desert, forest, and urban environments designed to test the combatants' adaptability. The rules were starkly simple. Victory hinged on incapacitating the opposing champion, a trial designed to expose both strength and cunning. Nathaniel stepped into the arena, his sleek, adaptive combat suit humming faintly. The suit's neural-linked targeting system and environmental cloaking features felt like an extension of his own body. The suit's technology, still experimental by galactic standards, allowed for rapid environmental adjustments and enhanced physical capabilities. Across the field, the Vraxilian champion loomed, its black scales glinting under the artificial sunlight. But Nathaniel wasn't alone. Zylara had insisted on joining the fight, and while her combat experience was minimal, her knowledge of Vraxilian tactics proved invaluable. She had spent the last 48 hours drilling Nathaniel on their opponent's likely strategies, her insights proving sharper than he'd anticipated. As the starting signal blared, the Vraxilian champion charged with a roar that shook the arena. Nathaniel dodged to the side, activating his suit's propulsion system to gain distance. Zylara, meanwhile, used the distraction to deploy a series of holodecoys, scattering them across the battlefield. The fight was brutal and unrelenting. The Vraxilian champion's sheer strength was matched only by its cunning, forcing Nathaniel to stay constantly on the move. Zylara's decoys bought them precious seconds, but it was her quick thinking that turned the tide. Her keen eyes locked onto a weak point in the Vraxilian's armor. Left shoulder joint, she directed over the comms, her voice slicing through the chaos with surgical precision. Left shoulder joint, she said through the comms. Strike there. Nathaniel followed her instructions, landing a precise blow that sent the champion stumbling. The crowd gasped as the Vraxilian struggled to regain its footing, its movements now sluggish. But the fight wasn't over. The champion let out a guttural roar and lunged for Zylara, who barely managed to evade its claws. Nathaniel moved instinctively, placing himself between her and their opponent. With a final, desperate effort, he activated the suit's power reserves, delivering a blow that sent the Vraxilian crashing to the ground. The arena hung in stunned silence as the referee declared the human Cralyxian team victorious. Then, a tidal wave of cheers erupted, punctuated by the sound of stomping feet and roaring approval, as skepticism turned to reverence. Back in the observation deck, Nathaniel and Zylara watched the stars in silence, the adrenaline of the fight still coursing through their veins. Finally, Zylara spoke. "You could have let me face the risk," she said quietly. Nathaniel shook his head. "We faced it together. That's what alliances are for." She smiled, her expression one of gratitude and determination. "Then let's make sure it's an alliance worth fighting for." The aftermath of the trial by combat reverberated through the Galactic Council, challenging assumptions about humanity's resilience and the Cralyxian royal family's relevance. Delegations that once mocked them now watched Nathaniel and Zylara with guarded respect, their whispering silenced by the pair's unexpected triumph. The Vraxilian delegation, visibly subdued, lingered on the periphery, their champion slumped in a quiet corner, nursing wounds and muttering inaudible curses. Yet, even in victory, the challenges were far from over. In the cramped quarters of the Terran delegation, Nathaniel stood before a holographic display, its glowing surface projecting an intricate map of the galaxy. Zylara paced behind him, her hands clasped tightly as she processed the latest intel. "They're retaliating," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "The Vraxilians are rallying their allies to block trade routes critical to Earth and Cralyxian systems." Nathaniel's expression darkened. "Petty moves, but effective ones. If we can't counter this, the alliance might crumble before it's truly begun." Zylara stopped pacing and turned to face him. "What are our options?" Nathaniel gestured to the hologram, highlighting systems that controlled choke points crucial for bypassing Vraxilian trade blockades. These neutral systems hold the key to the trade corridors. Securing their support would render the Vraxilian blockades ineffective. But it's a long shot. They're fiercely independent and notoriously difficult to negotiate with. "And what if we fail?" Zylara asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Then we prepare for a long and costly fight," Nathaniel replied, meeting her gaze. "But I don't intend to fail." Their first stop was the Velexan Accord, a loose coalition of merchant planets known for their wealth and aversion to conflict. The Terran shuttle docked at a sprawling orbital station, its design a chaotic mix of utilitarian metal and extravagant ornamentation. The bustling corridors of the station teemed with traders, mercenaries, and diplomats. One merchant's booming voice rose above the crowd, "I'll pay double for secure transit." Nathaniel and Zylara navigated the chaos with practiced determination, their presence drawing curious glances. At the heart of the station, they were ushered into a grand chamber where the Velexan Council awaited. The council members, a mix of humanoid and insectoid species, regarded them with cautious interest. Captain Reyes, Princess Zylara, intoned the lead counselor, a tall, silver-skinned humanoid with piercing blue eyes. "Your presence here is unexpected. State your purpose." Nathaniel stepped forward, his tone calm but commanding. We seek a partnership with the Velexan Accord. The Vraxilians are attempting to strangle trade routes vital to both Earth and Cralyxian systems. We believe the Accord stands to benefit from opposing their aggression. The councillors exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. At last, an insectoid councillor, its emerald exoskeleton glinting under the chamber lights, clicked its mandibles in deliberation. And what can you offer the Accord in return? Zylara stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. Earth and Cralyx possess resources and technologies that complement your own. Together, we can establish secure trade routes that bypass Vraxilian interference. Furthermore, our alliance stands as proof of the strength and resilience that come from unity. The council deliberated in low whispers, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. Finally, the lead councillor spoke. We will consider your proposal. However, actions speak louder than words. Prove your worth, and the Accord may be persuaded. The proving ground came sooner than expected. As Nathaniel and Zylara prepared to leave the station, alarms blared through the corridors. A Velexan security officer approached, their face pale. Pirates, the officer said breathlessly. They're attacking the station's cargo bays. Velexan defenses are stretched thin. We need all the help we can get. Nathaniel exchanged a glance with Zylara. Looks like our chance to prove ourselves just arrived, he said grimly. The two rushed to the station's defense command center, where chaos reigned. Velexan officers barked orders as holographic displays tracked the movements of pirate ships. Nathaniel quickly assessed the situation. Their main force is concentrated around the eastern cargo bays, he said, pointing to a cluster of red markers on the display. If we can cut off their supply lines, we can force a retreat. Zylara nodded. I'll coordinate with the Velexan ground teams. You handle the aerial assault. Nathaniel gave her a sharp nod. Stay safe. The battle was intense and chaotic. Nathaniel maneuvered a borrowed Velexan fighter, its sleek controls glowing faintly and responding almost telepathically to his deft movements. He weaved through the fray, targeting pirate vessels with precision strikes. Each explosion lit up the darkness of space, a testament to his expertise. On the station, Zylara rallied the defense teams, her royal bearing lending an unexpected authority to her commands. Under Zylara's decisive leadership, the disorganized Velexans regrouped, following her strategic orders to secure the cargo bays with precision. Together, they pushed back the pirates, reclaiming the cargo bays one by one. As the tide turned, Nathaniel spotted the pirate flagship attempting to escape. Gritting his teeth, he pushed his fighter to its limits, closing the distance. With a final, well-placed shot, the flagship's engines exploded, sending the vessel spiraling into the void. When the dust settled, the station was battered but intact. Nathaniel and Zylara stood before the Velexan Council once more, their uniforms scorched and their faces lined with exhaustion. Your actions have spoken louder than any words could, the lead councillor said, their tone filled with newfound respect. The Accord will support your alliance. Relief washed over Nathaniel, but he kept his expression steady. Thank you. Together, we'll ensure a future of prosperity and security. As they left the chamber, Zylara glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. Not bad for a day's chaos, Nathaniel said with a weary grin, his shoulders relaxing as the weight of the day began to lift. Nathaniel chuckled. Let's hope tomorrow isn't worse. The Velexan Accord's support marked a turning point, securing vital trade routes that revitalized Earth's struggling economy and stabilized the fragile Cralyxian monarchy. With their trade routes secured, Nathaniel and Zylara had managed to stabilize what had seemed like an impossible partnership. Yet, as the immediate crisis abated, they knew their work was far from over. The galaxy's politics churned with relentless ambition and deep-seated distrust, forcing their alliance to contend with territorial disputes and hidden agendas from rival factions. In the council chambers, representatives of dozens of species gathered once more, their faces a patchwork of curiosity and skepticism. Nathaniel and Zylara stood at the forefront, their presence a stark reminder of their recent victory. The Speaker of the Council, the insectoid leader with clicking mandibles, addressed the assembly. The alliance between Earth and Cralyx has demonstrated unexpected strength. Their actions have not only safeguarded critical trade routes but also exemplified the unity this council is meant to embody. Nathaniel's heart beat steadily as he stepped forward, a fleeting doubt crossing his mind before he steadied himself under the weight of the galaxy's scrutiny. The room fell silent, the weight of expectation pressing down on him. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice calm but resolute. "Earth and Cralyx may hold modest positions in the galaxy, but our alliance proves that even the least expected can rise to meet extraordinary challenges. The obstacles we face are not unique to us. They are shared by all who seek peace, prosperity, and stability." He glanced at Zylara, who gave him a small nod before stepping forward herself. "I once believed my exile was my destiny," she said, her voice steady, the conviction born of hard-won self-discovery. "But this alliance has taught me that identity is not given, it is forged. Together, we have shown that unity can overcome even the most insurmountable odds. And we invite you to join us in building a future where strength is not measured by domination but by cooperation." The chamber buzzed with murmurs. A Zyran diplomat leaned toward a colleague, muttering, "Unity is just a pretty word until the profits roll in," while others sat silently, their expressions veiled. Finally, the speaker's mandibles clicked again. "The council will deliberate," the speaker announced. "But know this, your actions have sparked a discussion long overdue." Later, in the quiet confines of the Terran quarters, Nathaniel and Zylara reflected on the day's events. The stars beyond the window were a reminder of the vastness they still had to navigate. "Do you think they'll join us?" Zylara asked, her tone thoughtful. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the endless expanse of space. "Maybe not all of them. But we've planted a seed, and with time, that seed can grow into something unshakable." She smiled faintly, her posture relaxing for the first time in days. "It's strange. For so long, I felt like a burden. Now, I feel hopeful." "Hope is a powerful thing," Nathaniel said, his voice soft. "It's what brought Earth back from the brink. And it's what will carry this alliance forward." The weeks that followed saw a shift in the Galactic Council. Though not every species pledged their support, a growing number began to see the value in the unity Nathaniel and Zylara championed. Small trade agreements blossomed into larger pacts. Delegations that once scoffed at the alliance now sought audiences with its leaders. Zylara, once an outcast, became a beacon of hope. On distant worlds, her speeches spurred movements among the disenfranchised, giving rise to calls for equality and inclusion. Her speeches resonated across the galaxy, her story inspiring those who felt marginalized or forgotten. Nathaniel, for his part, balanced diplomacy with the pragmatism Earth's survival had taught him, earning the grudging respect of even his most skeptical peers. Together, they spearheaded a movement that redefined the Council's priorities, introducing reforms such as shared research initiatives and joint security measures to replace rivalry with cooperation. Peace and cooperation, long relegated to mere ideals, began to take root as tangible goals. On the anniversary of their alliance, Nathaniel and Zylara stood once more in the council chambers. This time, they were not alone. Behind them stood representatives from dozens of worlds, their presence a testament to the strength of the unity they had fought to build. The speaker's voice echoed through the chamber. "Today, we recognize a new chapter in the history of this council. The alliance forged by Earth and Cralyx has become a beacon of hope, proving that even the most distant and disparate among us can find common ground." As applause filled the chamber, Nathaniel glanced at Zylara. Her expression was one of quiet pride, her once wary eyes now filled with confidence. "We've come a long way," he said quietly. She nodded. "And we've only just begun." The stars beyond the chamber window sparkled with renewed brilliance, a quiet reminder that even the darkest corners of the galaxy could be illuminated by the light of unity and hope.